When we imagine the gladiatorial fights of ancient Rome, the image of a muscular man with a sword usually comes to mind. However, the reality was far more varied and unexpected. Female gladiators, known as gladiatrixes, were an integral part of the bloody spectacles that drew thousands of spectators to the stands of the amphitheaters. The exact date of the appearance of women in the arena remains a mystery to historians, but documentary evidence points to their existence as early as the 54th year, when Emperor Nero ascended to the throne. This means that the tradition of female gladiatorial combat had been going on for at least several decades by then. The path to gladiators for women was as varied as it was for men. Many entered the arena as slaves sold by their masters to gladiatorial schools. Historians estimate that up to 30% of all slaves in the Roman Empire were women, and some of them may have ended up in the ranks of gladiatrixes. Another source of replenishment of the ranks of female gladiators was debtors. Roman law allowed creditors to sell insolvent debtors into slavery, and the arena was often the only way to pay off debts and regain freedom. Historians suggest that about 15% of gladiators of both sexes entered the arena in this way. It is interesting to note that there is evidence of the participation of women from the upper classes in gladiatorial performances, although such cases were rare. Suetonius, in his work, Life of 12 Caesars, mentions that Emperor Domitian organized fights with the participation of women, but does not specify their social status. Moreover, in 11 the Roman Senate issued a decree forbidding women of noble origin under 20 years of age to appear in the arena, which indirectly confirms the existence of such a practice. However, it is important to emphasize that there is no reliable historical evidence of regular and voluntary participation of patrician women in gladiatorial fights. Among the many gladiatrixes whose names have not come down to us, there are references to two outstanding female warriors, Amazona and Achillea. Their names were evidently stage aliases chosen to enhance dramatic effect on the public. Amazona probably received her name in honor of the legendary female warriors from Greek mythology. Achillea, on the other hand, was named after the great hero of the Trojan War, Achilles. The choice of such high-profile names suggests that these gladiatrixes were real stars of their time, able to attract thousands of spectators to the stands. According to some estimates, popular gladiators and gladiatrixes could earn up to 15,000 sesterces per performance. By comparison, the annual income of the average Roman legionary was about 900 sestertii. This means that successful arena fighters could earn more in one performance than a soldier could earn in 16 years of service. Roman emperors were always looking for new ways to surprise and entertain the public. One such unusual spectacle was a nighttime show put on by Emperor Domitian in the arena of the newly built Colosseum. In this spectacle, female gladiators fought dwarfs by torchlight. This exotic spectacle reflected the Roman passion for unusual and sometimes grotesque entertainment. The Colosseum, which held up to 50,000 spectators, was the ideal venue for such performances. Historians believe that such shows could be held several times a year, attracting huge crowds of thrill-seeking Romans. Contrary to popular belief, female gladiators did not wear skirts. Their equipment was functional and differed little from that of men. The main weapon, as with male gladiators, was often the gladius, a short sword ideal for close combat in the confined space of the arena. The protective gear of gladiatrixes could include a helmet, armbands, greaves, and a small shield. Interestingly, some surviving depictions of female gladiators show them fighting with their breasts exposed. However, historians consider this to be more of an artistic device than a reflection of reality. The cost of a complete set of gladiatorial equipment could be as high as 5,000 sesterces, which was equivalent to 5 annual salaries of a skilled artisan in Rome. This explains why most gladiators, including women, did not own their own equipment but received it from their lanistas, the owners of gladiatorial schools. The lives of gladiatrixes, like their male counterparts, were filled with grueling training. A day at a gladiatorial school began at dawn and could last up to 12 hours. The training included physical training, practicing fighting techniques, and learning battle tactics. The diet of gladiators of both sexes was carefully designed to maintain physical fitness. It included large amounts of legumes, grains, and vegetables, which provided the necessary energy and helped build muscle mass. Interestingly, gladiators were often called barley eaters because of the predominance of this cereal in their diet. The average preparation time of a novice before the first entry into the arena was about 6 months. During this time, gladiatrix had to master not only fighting skills, but also the art of presentation, because gladiatorial fights were primarily a spectacle. Contrary to popular belief, gladiatorial fights rarely ended in the death of one of the participants. Historians estimate that only 10% of fights had a fatal outcome. This is explained by the high cost of gladiator training and the desire of the Lannis to preserve their investment. Nevertheless, the life of a gladiatrix was full of dangers. The average career of a female gladiator lasted about 5 years. During that time, she could take part in 30 fights. The chances of surviving to release, which usually came after 15 fights or reaching a certain age, were about 50%. Interestingly, female gladiators most often fought against each other or against dwarfs, but they have been known to enter the arena against men. Such fights were especially spectacular and attracted huge public attention. The attitude of Roman society to female gladiators was ambiguous. On the one hand, their courage and fighting skills were admired. Some gladiatrixes became real celebrities. Their names were on everyone's lips. There is evidence that images of popular female gladiators adorned the walls of houses and public buildings. On the other hand, the participation of women in bloody spectacles was frowned upon by the more conservative part of society. The Roman poet Juvenal, in his satires, criticized women who despised their sex and took up arms. Some philosophers and public figures saw this phenomenon as a sign of the moral decay of Roman society. Interestingly, even among the upper classes, opinions were divided. There are known cases when noble Roman women not only attended gladiatorial fights with the participation of women, but also secretly trained in the art of combat. The era of female gladiators lasted about 150 years, until in 200th year Emperor Septimius Severus did not impose a ban on the participation of women in gladiatorial fights. The official reason given was an insult to the gods, but historians believe that the true motives may have been more pragmatic. For one thing, by the end of the 2nd century, the popularity of gladiatorial fights had begun to decline and they were becoming increasingly expensive to organize. Excluding women may have been a way to cut costs. Second, Septimius Severus, who came to power after a period of civil wars, sought to reinforce traditional Roman values, and the ban on female gladiators may have been part of this policy. It is interesting to note that the ban was not absolute. Archaeological evidence suggests that women continued to participate in gladiatorial combat for some time after Septimius Severus' decree, albeit in much smaller numbers.